Hey, greetings and good morning. This is the Gospel, episode number 2. And this is where we're going to be going through the history books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which are found in God's library in the collection of books called the Bible. And God is the one who created everything in heaven and on earth. God created me and God created you with the mind and the will to do whatever it is that we want to do. Now, I know right there you may have some that will say, no, God didn't give us the will to do whatever we want to do, when in fact, yes, he did, right? I mean, if you want to get drunk, we'll go to the store and buy a bunch of beer and get drunk, right? If you want to lose all your money, then go to Las Vegas or Lost Wages and gamble all your money away. You're free to do whatever it is you want to do. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. You have the mind and the will created by God to do whatever you want. And God, Almighty God, sent his one and only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, and has given him all power and authority on heaven and on earth. So therefore, we will receive the life principles and beliefs through the teaching and revelation of Jesus Christ, which is absolute gospel truth. But before we get to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, let's talk politics and where we are, right? What have we gone through in the last decade? Because that's kind of thrown everything off in America a little bit. And I'll say the reason why is because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump just became president for the second time nearly 2 weeks ago. Now, look how fast time flies. That was nearly 2 weeks ago. And yet he's already become president again. And I'm going to be honest, that is great news. That is good news because Donald Trump is really a one of a kind type of individual, right? Why? Because Donald Trump has sense. You know, not a lot of people have sense. Sense in meaning that you could sense a good deal. You could sense when you're being lied to. You could sense when there's danger. You could sense when something's, the right choice. You have sense, and he has sense. And so that's a good thing to have. Another thing is he's like an employee, a good employee, right? That's the way I kind of look at it. A good employee that you don't have to look after to do the job. You just know that he's going to get the job done because he does what he says and he says what he does. And he's really a one of a kind type of individual that has come across during our lifetimes and actually probably in the history of this country. And I would argue to say that he's probably one of the best presidents America has ever had, especially in an established America. I'm not going back to the beginning of 240 years ago when the first president, second president were trying to establish a nation here, America. I'm talking about today. America's already established. So Donald Trump relates to us. He definitely relates to us. Why? Because he's an American. He is an absolute American. And he's not, you see, like J.D. Vance, for instance, the vice president. Donald Trump gets us more than he does. Than J.D. Vance, his vice president. His vice president is the one who says that he gets us because he says that he comes from a poor upbringing. His mom was a single mother home. His mom had to work 2 or 3 jobs to put food on the table. And so he gets us because he comes from a poor upbringing, a poor life. And the truth is we get him too. Why? Because we know human nature. And now he's making $250,000. According to Business Insider, the vice president makes up to $300,000 a year, $286,000 to be exact. But the point is, he's now making $25,000 a month as a senator, now vice president. He has a good job, and so we get him because we understand human nature. You don't want to give up your job now. You know what it's like to be poor. You don't want to go back to being poor. You want to continue having money. You want to continue making, those paychecks And so the way he gets us, we get him. That's why J.D. Vance is nothing more than just a squeaky politician, right? He's a polished politician. Even in the end of his debate with the Vice President, Tim Walz, who was running with Kamala Harris, he was like, at the end of this, whoever wins, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, will still to shake hands and we'll try to work together. Because he wants his job. You know, Nancy Pelosi, who's about to be 85 years old, just won another term as Senate. So J.D. Vance, who's 40, is looking at Nancy Pelosi and thinking, hey, I could do this for the next 50 years. I could keep getting these paychecks. Why? Because he was brought up in a poor home. J.D. Vance was. So he's just going to do what he needs to do to get by. He's not going to sacrifice himself. Never. Because he enjoys his money, his wealth now. He was here, now he's there. So we get him. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is a different story. He's always had money. He was born into money. His dad was pretty rich. But the reason why I say that is because Donald Trump has always known money. So therefore, money doesn't sway him, right? And when we go back to 2015, 2016, you know, Donald Trump spent nearly $1 billion of his own personal money to run for the president of the United States. Nearly $1 billion. Now, who has that? Who has not only almost $1 billion to run for president, but has the will to go follow through with it? And not only that, but being the persona that he is, in his sixth sense, knowing how to say the right things and rally a crowd and get them and ooh and ahs. And who has that ability? There's very few. And some that do have that ability don't have the funding to even have that type of ability. Because Donald Trump is a very powerful individual. He's a very powerful individual. He always has been. He's been a kingpin in business. He's opened up casinos. He's been in television in Hollywood. He was been, you know, in the churches now, these mega churches. He knows, you know, the ins and outs of a lot of different things. And he's a very powerful individual. If you don't think that Donald Trump is powerful, okay, in the last couple of years, they threw 100+ felonies on Donald Trump. He went to trial and lost and was convicted on 32 felony counts. Not only did he pay almost $500 million in attorney fees. This is $500 million. Not only did he spend $1 billion, but now he spent another $500 million defending himself in attorney fees. First of all, who has $500 million to pay for attorneys, let alone $1 billion to run for president? That's why I say he's a very powerful individual. Where now, not only did he become president again, but now he's going to fire the federal government's DA, right? Jack Smith. He's going to fire him, or excuse me, I think Jack Smith is going to resign before he can be fired. But the person who brought the charges against him, he's now getting rid of. You're out of here. You're fired. And those charges have gone away. That's a very powerful individual, right? Donald Trump is a one of a kind guy, and he gets us. He may be on a different level financially with us, but he was born and raised an American. He knows what it's like. He goes to the restaurants. He drives the streets. He sees the potholes. He sees the infrastructure. He goes overseas. He sees the way other countries over the last 3 or 4 decades have completely exploded in their beauty, their streets of gold and hotels, you know, 4 or 5 season hotels that they have in their countries. And so, you know, he gets us in the sense that he doesn't need money. He ran because of the fact he was sick and tired of the status pro quo, so to speak, in the government. Because that's what we have. We have politicians. We have crooked politicians. And so he's a one-of-a-kind individual. And the reason why I say that is, in the history books, they're going to say his first term ended with the worst unemployment rate ever. for a sitting president because the unemployment completely nosedived in his last term in 2020. But we all know why, right? I mean, it doesn't take a brain scientist to figure this out. It's because of COVID 2020 that everything shut down and everyone lost their work. They lost their jobs. That's what happened. And then Joe Biden, on the other hand, he's going to get praise for his first year or two as making the most improvement on the unemployment for everyone going back to work. But again, we know why. It was because of COVID. Now everyone's going back to work because the country opened up again. We literally shut down the entire country in 2020. We shut it down for COVID. You know, let's just do a quick stat because everyone thinks and pretends like they care. Like everyone's just, you know, if you don't care about COVID, then it's all bad. Okay, COVID, as of today, as of April 23rd, 2024, has had over 7 million people around the world has died of COVID. Okay, over 7 million people, 7,010,681 to be exact. Look it up. And let me tell you, I forgot to bring my pack. I picked one up on the trash too. But the point is, tobacco kills 8 million people a year. 8 million people a year and 1.2 million people from secondhand smoke. In the United States alone, tobacco smoke kills 500,000 people every year. And yet they sell cigarettes and they sell tobacco products, cigars, whatever it is, everywhere. You know what that's called? Hypocrisy. That's what that is. And I was actually going to show you a pack. I got 2 different packs of cigars that says the Surgeon General warning. One of them says that tobacco smoke causes lung cancer and health problems. And then I know what some people were going to say was, well, that's your choice. If you want to smoke, that's the consequence. But the other pack I was going to show you says that not only does it cause health cancer and health effects and lung cancer, but it also causes that in secondhand smoke to non-smokers too. It was a warning to non-smokers. So you don't even have to smoke and still catch secondhand smoke. In fact, 1.2 million people die from secondhand smoke every single year. Every single year, just from secondhand smoke. You don't even need to smoke. 8 million people die from tobacco smoke every year. And that's around the world. And to this day, 7 million people, a little over 7 million people have died from COVID. So if you do the math, okay, from 2020 to today, that's nearly 32 million people, actually more than 32 million people have died from tobacco smoke. More than 32 million people have died. And if you want to go with secondhand smoke, we'll just do the math. That's over 5 million people have died from secondhand smoke. You don't even have to smoke. Over 5 million people have died since 2020, and we're in 2024 from secondhand smoke, and you don't even have to smoke. Where's all the uproar about this? There is none. That's called hypocrisy. And we're going to learn about not being hypocrites anymore. Because we're going to be getting the principles of life through Jesus Christ. And he's going to free you of hypocrisy. He's going to free you of hypocrisy. It's not going to be like one of these, people that you'll hear from Christian circles that'll say, I know you always get the world that say that Christians are just a bunch of hypocrites. But we just say, well, come and join us. There's always room for one more. No, man. Christians aren't hypocrites. God hates hypocrisy. I promise you that. God hates hypocrisy. Let me give you a quick example of what hypocrisy is. Okay? Veterans Day just happened on Monday, a couple days ago, right? And so you got a lot of people who were celebrating the dead veterans who have lost their lives to quote unquote give us the freedoms that we have in America. And this isn't Memorial's Day because they actually have an entire day set for thanking the dead, right? Thanking the veterans. But my point being is, Jesus Christ is very clear. Oh yeah, this is what I was saying. Oh yeah, so then Memorial's Day is for veterans that actually died. This Veterans Day, some people were at the cemeteries and they're thanking their loved ones and so on, you know, for sacrificing their life. But the hypocrisy is that if you have like another celebration for the dead, like the Day of the Saints, you know, celebrating the saints who have died before us. Oh no, that's not us. That's the Catholic religion, you know. We don't celebrate the dead saints, you know. That's nowhere in the Bible does it say to celebrate the dead saints. But yet you want to go ahead and celebrate the veterans who died in the past. You know, that's called hypocrisy. Or they have something called the Day of the Dead, right? Where they celebrate the dead who have passed before and they'll paint their faces and everything. Oh no, we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't celebrate that type of thing. But yet you're celebrating the dead soldiers that died for the freedom of your country. What's the difference? There is none. You know what that's called? That's called hypocrisy. Bunch of hypocrites. You know what Jesus Christ says? Jesus Christ says, follow me. Let the dead bury their own dead. That's what Jesus says. That's Matthew 8:22. That's what Jesus says. He says, let the dead bury their own dead. But as for you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. That's Luke 9:60. You see, that's what Jesus says. But you know what you're going to have in the churches? And I'm going to get off just the pastors, for example, because this doesn't need to be a pastor. This just be leadership, elders, deacons, and just Christians in general. They always defend what they do, their behavior. And they'll say, no, Jesus doesn't mean to not bury your parents or not, you know, bury people like that, or not celebrate. They always say that. Or Sam is taking things out of context again. Now, this is the reason why we're going to be going verse by verse, chapter to chapter, through the gospel, beginning with Matthew and ending with John. Mysteries are going to be revealed. We're going to be seeing things in a whole new light. Because if there's one thing God hates, is hypocrisy, right? Jesus is very clear. Let the dead bury their own dead. But even if you want to do celebrate, and you want to celebrate the memorials and the Memorial Day and the veterans and everything, then why don't you not judge those who want to celebrate All Saints Day, right? No, that's a Catholic thing. Or the Day of the Dead. No, we don't do that. We don't paint our faces. No, we won't do that. Why don't you let them do what they do? Because you're going to do what you do. You know what I mean? It's all hypocrisy. Anyway, I kind of lost track for a second where I was even going. My point is, I don't know if this is where I was, but we'll just go back to Joe Biden being looked at as, oh yeah, that's where it was. Cancer, right? Cancer sticks, tobacco. That's hypocrisy. And that's what we had to deal with. Back in 2020 was the whole COVID thing. Shut down the entire country. And why don't we shut down the country for now? For cigarette smoke. I mean, it's killed over 32 million people in the last 4 years. COVID has killed 7 million. But still nobody's doing nothing about this, right? So the point is that Donald Trump is a really one-of-a-kind individual. You know, he is someone who does what he says and says what he does. And these next 4 years are going to be terrific. They're going to be great. But his over-the-top persona of being able to reach and pull the heartstrings of the American people to vote for him, to come out so big that they even titled it Too Big to Rig. We needed it to be too big to rig. We needed this election to be so big that they couldn't rig it, because we already know it's fake. We knew that from 2020. Why? I mean, Joe Biden was already in the decline 4 years ago. Just look at the way he won. He won with over 40 million mail-in ballots. Ain't nobody go check those. Compared to Donald Trump, I don't know what he had, like about 20 million or something. But one with over 40 million mail-in ballots. Nobody went to go check that. He did like 3 campaign speeches from his basement to an audience of no one, right? Because everything was still locked down and it was COVID and 6 feet apart and distancing and so on. And yet he got the most votes ever for a sitting president in world history. Unbelievable. Donald Trump has always been campaigning. He's been having tens of thousands of people. In fact, in this last campaign, the last couple of months, not only did he have tens of thousands of people, but in some instances he had hundreds of thousands of people in Los Angeles, in New York. Not Los Angeles, but California and New York. He had over 100,000 people. Probably the reason why Republicans don't campaign, the reason why Donald Trump doesn't campaign in California is because it really show you that probably California is red. It's not a blue state. There's a lot of conservative cities in California. The only liberals in California is like Hollywood and San Francisco, but we're supposed to believe that California's 54 votes is blue. And look at New York. He went to Madison Square Garden, and was in front of 20,000, 25,000 people, had tens of thousands of people outside. My point is, the proof is in the pudding, right? You just have, it's too big to rig. You can't go, it's just too big. It's too big to rig. They're making posters. Everyone came out to vote, and Donald Trump won. And to be honest, I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised Kamala Harris even got as many votes as she even did. It really should have been like a lopsided victory of like 85% to about 20%. That's what it really should have been, in my opinion. But it was too big to rig. Now, the reason why I say all this is because, Joe Biden just gave a speech, right? We know the way politics are. And I posted on my Facebook page because it was loaded with insight on the way this world is ran. Okay. The way the world is ran is you have good and you have evil, period. Now, of course, this is only if you believe in Jesus Christ, because he tells you the truth. Now, Jesus tells us very clearly on what you have children of God, and what you have out there is you have the children of the devil. Jesus tells us clearly that you of the world belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. That's John 8:44. This world has nothing to offer more than lies. That's it. You're dealing with a bunch of liars. Okay, period. Now, I know people, they're going to say, well, no, the world is not a bunch of liars. You got to see where Jesus is coming from in the context. They always contradict Jesus, right? Like as though those people at that time are children of the devil. We don't have any children of the devil today. There are no liars and murderers today. Jesus was talking about to those people. Again, this is the reason why we're going to be going verse by verse, chapter to chapter. But let me tell you, God is yesterday, today, and forever. Times change. They do. Times change. People do not. People do not change. The same thing that they're thinking then, they're thinking now, just with different technology. And I was thinking about technology. Everyone always talks about the good of technology. That's the way they get it in your face, is how good this technology is going to benefit you. But I bet you if they show you about how evil you could use nefarious acts technology, I bet you a lot of people would change their mind on technology and tell you, and you'll see how bad technology really is. You would really see how bad technology is, because you could see all the evil that you could do with technology. From little tracking devices thrown in somebody's car, seeing where they're at, whatever. You could do so much type of evil now with technology. times change, people don't. They're still murderers at heart and liars and children of the devil. And this is who we deal with. If you don't believe in God, you believe in death. And if you don't believe in Jesus, okay, if you don't believe Jesus, can you at least believe the Apostle Paul? Or in 2 Corinthians chapter 4:4, he says, Satan, who is the god of this world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They're unable to see the glorious light of the good news, the gospel. They don't understand this message about the glory of Jesus Christ, who is the exact likeness of God. So if you don't believe Jesus Christ, can you follow the Apostle Paul? You can even say it's God, okay? Fine. If you want to call Paul God, it's okay. He's telling you jewels here. Satan, who is the god of this world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They're unable to see the glorious light of the good news, the gospel. They don't understand this message about the glory of Jesus Christ, who is the exact likeness of God. Okay. My point is this, is that there's no integrity in the government. Okay. These are just people. You either have God or you have the devil. My point is, you get these gun-ho leaders of churches that want to tell you the integrity of the voting booth, the election. Let me tell you what. The elections are fake. Your vote don't count. If you want to vote, vote. It's free to do. Put your voice out there. It doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, I will sit here and I'll even tell you, go ahead and vote. But one thing I'm not going to tell you is tell you that your vote matters, because it don't. The direction of this world is already going in the direction that they want it to go. They do. It's going to be a one world government. This is what Revelation tells us. It's going to be a one world government eventually ran by the devil himself, because he's going to put himself in the throne, right? And one way to do that is have everything electric, right? Everything needs to be electric. Why? So they could turn off the power with a finger and a switch. So right now, everything is electric. You know, they want everything to be electric. They say the climate change is because of all the smoke we're putting into the ozone layer, the cars. They blame the cars, even though these rich people drive private jets and everything else. And you got fires over there. So the state of California itself has already banned selling gas vehicle cars as of 2035. In 10 years from now, California will no longer be selling gas-powered vehicles by 2035. That's the plan. That's there. It's already in motion. San Francisco is actually a liberal city that has already made it a complete electric city. So you cannot have a gas furnace. You can't have anything gas in your house. You have to have an electric stove. You have to have an electric heater. Everything needs to be electric in San Francisco. The reason why I say that is, let's talk about Elon Musk for a minute, right? Elon Musk. He's like a hotshot Republican now. That is like, everyone's like loves Elon Musk. Why? I'm just curious, because you got to use the wisdom that God gives you here. Elon Musk is not a Christian, and he doesn't believe in God. Okay, period. And the reason why I say that is because just a couple years ago, like a year or two ago, Elon Musk was a complete liberal Democrat, lived in San Francisco, had his headquarters of his companies in San Francisco, the most liberal city in the entire America, even more than Hollywood, San Francisco, the most liberal city. And this is where Elon Musk was. And not only that, but he owns electric vehicles. That's his whole thing. His Tesla is electric everything, right? So what he decides to do is he decides to move his entire company to one of the most conservative, if not the most conservative state in America, which is Texas. He moved his entire company to Texas, the second largest populous state in America, and probably the most conservative state in America, Texas, with now his company of electric vehicles. And now I see Teslas everywhere. They're driving around everywhere. Is this like an infiltration of some sorts? He moves from the most liberal city in America to the most conservative state in America with all this stuff. And do you really think that he's going to miss out if we get rid of gas-powered vehicles? Isn't he for all electric, Elon Musk? I mean, you would think that he would win, right? It's a win-win for him. It's like, for instance, let's say if the law passes that everyone needs to have a landscaper. You can no longer mow your own land. Only landscapers can mow your yard. Well, who's going to love that? Landscapers, right? I got to get into the landscaping business. Landscapers are going to win. Or let's say everyone in America needs to own a basketball. Why you need to own a basketball? I don't know, but let's just use the example. Everyone needs to own a basketball. Well, who's going to win? Spalding, the basketball company, they're going to be like, all right, well, now we're going to be making a lot more money because now everyone needs to own a basketball. Or just anything, a barbecue pit. You need to have a barbecue pit. Well, who's going to win? Well, the people that make barbecue pits, right? It just works. It's a win-win. So if America is going all electric, and California and a couple of other states have joined suit, but if California is already banning electric vehicles by 2035, then why would Elon Musk lose? He's just going to win. And right now, currently, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, is close to $350 billion. $350 billion. And he donated $100 million or something like that to Donald Trump for the Republican Party. Nobody does things if they're not going to get back in return. First of all, that donation, what's $100 million to get in Donald Trump's good graces to maybe we do need everything electric to everyone buying Tesla and driving my vehicles to I'm the first trillionaire in the world. Right? He doesn't lose. I'm just wondering why everyone is like, yeah, he's the greatest guy in the world. And for all these, people that want to say that Elon Musk is like, this is what capitalism is, and you're allowed to succeed and make your money and earn a living. I'll be the first one to tell you, no single human being needs to have $350 billion. Nobody needs to have this. And I know you get, leaders of the church that want to defend, no, it's the love of money that is the root of all evil. It's not money itself. Again, why don't we focus on what Jesus Christ says? Because he tells the self-righteous Pharisees. This is the self-righteous Pharisees. And remember, Jesus Christ only used the word abomination or detestable once. You know that? Jesus only used the word abomination. This is an abomination once. Detestable. This is a detestable once. And do you know what it was for? I don't know. Was it for homosexuality? No. Was it for adultery? No. Was it for murder? No. Jesus Christ used the word abomination one time, and he told the Pharisees, because the Pharisees who loved their money, Pharisees loved money. He says, you are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of others. But God knows your hearts. What people value highly, money, is an abomination in the sight of God. That's the only time Jesus Christ says it is detestable in the sight of God are those who justify their riches. It's not the love of money. It's not money. It's the love of money. And we're a capitalistic nation. We should be able to make $350 billion and not give it to anybody. We don't need to share the wealth. It's like recently I saw this other multimillionaire, Joe Rogan, right? I happened to catch one of his podcasts, and he was talking about how the way he likes to keep his team short. He only has like 1 or 2 employees that work for him. That's it. This guy's worth over $100 million. And his little podcast that he has, he only has like a couple guys, and that's about it. But he goes to other people, their podcasts, and they have like a team of like 20, 30 people that are behind the scenes. Some are even getting coffee, donuts, pampering up a couch for you to sit on, whatever it is. Everyone has their little task and their little job. But Joe Rogan says, no, you don't need all that stuff. You only need one or two people. Let me tell you something. When you have over $100 million, if you hire about 30, 40 people, that's called spreading the wealth. Spread the wealth. Let other people get a little bit, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Let other people get it. Jesus Christ, in fact, says, why don't you get rid of all your money? Give it to the poor. Then come follow me. But the Pharisees who loved their money, Jesus says, you're an abomination. The only time. So I don't know what the big deal is with Elon Musk, why everybody loves him, but now he's on Team Trump and he's there wearing the MAGA hat and he's all happy at the, whatever he's doing. But go figure. You could do whatever it is you want to do, right? In the end of the day. Why? Because that's the will that God gives us. He gives us the mind and the will to do whatever we want to do. But we're going to get through the gospel. Anyway, going back to Donald Trump. I don't know if I kind of switched up. I don't know how I got to Elon Musk. I kind of go over the place a little bit. Anyway, so you either have good and you have bad. That's the only thing. The Apostle Paul even tells us, how can light mix with darkness? How can the children of God associate and do business, paraphrase, with the children of the devil? But that's what it is today. And that's why when you have these Pharisees get a lot of tax breaks from the government, from the capitalistic government that they love so much, will tell you, no, voting is great. It's the honest people. They'll even go as far as to say, some people will think that they'll even say there's good people in hell. These are the ones that are in the church that are bringing God's word to you. They'll say, there'll be a lot of good people in hell. Let me just tell you right here. Let me clear something out. We're learning here. There is no good person in hell. They are all evil people in hell. Period. There are no good people. Only God is good. And if God sent good people to hell, then God would not know how to judge right. You know yourself. You know how evil you are. You know what you would do if you could get away with it. Because you're evil by nature. The point is, there are no good people in hell. They're all evil. And going back to what I was saying, that's the world we live in. And us as Christians, we need to understand this. This is why we use the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding of Jesus Christ. Now, you could do whatever you want to do. If you want to vote, I'll even tell you, you can vote. Go and vote. Show your 2 cents. As a matter of fact, not only did I vote for Donald Trump in 2016, but in 2020, when I voted for Donald Trump, that entire year, I was donating every month to his campaign. Money was coming out of my pocket and I was donating it to Donald Trump. And there's a record of that. My name showed up in his paper every single month, like everybody else's who donated. If he went through those names, he went through those names. If he didn't, he didn't. It's there. I donated every month to his campaign in 2020. But after I saw what happened in 2020 with Joe Biden and the way everything was getting shut down and the way it went down with him winning, I knew it was all fake. That was a tipping point. I was too young to go all the way back to 2020 when George W. Bush beat Al Gore by like 500 votes. That's too close to call. That's another thing. Like whenever you look at these politics and you look at like the Congress and the House of Representatives, and you always see how close. They're always like 50-50. They're always like neck and neck. Why is every election this close for? And then we laugh at other countries when you're like, look at the In Iran, the president won by like 85%. And I'm like, that's really the way it should have been here. Donald Trump should have won by about 85% to 15%. But they want to just keep it close because it's like a ball game, right? Let's say you're winning, and let's say you're playing basketball and it's the playoffs and you're tied 100 and one's got 99, the other one has 100. Well, all you got to do is just the last play go and do a layup. You don't know who's going to win all the way to the last second. It's neck and neck. It's deadlocked. So it's easier to cheat at the end of the game because of the fact it's so close. So it's easier to cheat. Everyone thinks it's so close, when in reality it's not. The score is actually 80 to 100 going into the last 5 minutes, where everyone should already know who's going to win by flying colors. But we never have that in America. We never have a flying color victor in America. It's always neck and neck. So then the last minute, they can throw whoever they want to throw in there. And that's what we've been dealing with in America with a bunch of politicians. That's all America's ever been, are just a bunch of politicians. And I'm talking about established America. I'm not going back to the first presidents of the United States. For me personally, I don't believe George Washington ever existed. But that's a whole nother topic for a different discussion. I'm not going to go into the details on why I believe George Washington, forgot my water too. Anyway, why George Washington didn't exist. Maybe one day I'll do an in-depth video on why I believe George Washington never even existed. But that's besides the point. I'm not going back to the founding fathers of this country who was trying to establish a country. I'm sticking with an established country. All we're dealing with are politicians. Nancy Pelosi's been a senator for like 60 years, and she just got elected again for another, I don't know, whatever term they use. She's like 85, right? These people, they never go away. And this brings me to my next point. Joe Biden. He just did a video. And there was so much wealth in this video of knowledge of what we just understand now to this point, is that this is the happiest I ever seen Joe Biden ever in my life. I mean, maybe not my entire life, but at least in the last like 4 or 5 years, he was like, chirpy and happy and jumpy. And I don't even know if he even made a mistake during the speech. Before he couldn't even talk for a minute without fumbling his words. I actually personally think Joe Biden didn't even want to be president again. Now, for me, totally, I was a die-hard 100% believer that Joe Biden was going to be president again because of what happened in 2020. And not only did I think he was going to be president again, but I thought and I figured that he would die in office within a year or two, or that they would have to rush him off to a resting home. But I actually thought he would die in office and Kamala Harris would be the first woman president ever. But again, it's too big to rig. Too many people, the American people, have spoken. They backed Donald Trump because he gets us. And he does. A lot more than his vice president, J.D. Vance, does. So the point is this is the happiest I ever seen Joe Biden. I mean, he's just coming out. He's jolly, smiles, didn't even fumble a word. But if you listen to what he says, the first thing he says in this speech is, for over 200 years, America has carried out the greatest experiment, self-government, in the history of the world. That's not hyperbole. That's a fact. Okay? Did you catch what he just said? For over 200 years, America has carried out the greatest experiment, self-government, in the history of the world. That's not hyperbole. That's a fact. Now, if you're like me, I'm wondering, what does hyperbole even mean? So the definition of hyperbole is exaggerated statements or claims not meant to be taken literally. So in other words, he's saying, you better take what I'm telling you literally. This is a fact. America has carried out the greatest experiment in the history of the world. Do you get that? Do you know what that means? You're an experiment. You know COVID shutting down America for 7 million deaths in the last 4 years compared to smoking, which has been 32 million deaths in the last 4 years, or over 5 million deaths from secondhand smoke in the same time? You're an experiment. America's an experiment. Do you even know what an experiment is? Well, let's look at the definition of experiment. Experiment is a procedure carried out under controlled conditions in order to discover an unknown effect or law, to test or establish a hypothesis, or to illustrate a known law. The process of testing, experimentation, experiment. We're being tested. That's what it is. It's a procedure to carry out under controlled conditions in order to discover an unknown effect. They already know what they're doing. It's under control. They already know who the next presidents are going to be. That's why it was too big to rig the presidency, why Donald Trump is back in office. And the truth is now Donald Trump doesn't have any other choice but to do what he says he's going to do. He better now fix the border. He has no other choice, right? Or else the American people will pull him out of the White House by his feet too. Now he has to fix the border. He has to fix the immigration problem. He better fix the immigration problem. He better fix the inflation. He better fix the world peace. And he better fix these things because Trump is going to fix it. And now he has no choice. He convinced us all that this is what he's going to do, so now he better do it, right? And it was too big to rig. But that wasn't a part of the plan. It wasn't a part of the plan. Because the world already has their plan. They already know what they want to do. They already see the future 10, 20, 30 years down the road. That's why sometimes a lot of these movies that you see about the future come to pass. Movie that you see 20 years ago, you see today. It's almost like a system of helping you understand that this is the path that we're going to go, right? Because it's all about what you see. And if you look at the AI definition of experiment, an experiment is a controlled test or trial done to discover something new. This is what artificial intelligence will tell you that an experiment means. Is a controlled test or trial done to discover something new. I don't know, COVID? Shut everything down, see how the way people behave, react. Usually by observing the effects of changing one specific thing while keeping other factors the same. Essentially, it's a way to test a hypothesis by manipulating variables to see what happens. Variables to see what happens. So AI's definition of experiment is an experiment is a controlled test or trial done to discover something new, usually by observing the effects of changing one specific thing while keeping other factors the same. Essentially, it's a way to test a hypothesis by manipulating variables to see what happens. See what happens. Just like the 2020 election. Donald Trump was supposed to have it in the bag. He was going to come back for 2020. He was going to open everything up. But instead, what did they do? They threw in Joe Biden. They gave us sanctions, right? That's what you call inflation. I mentioned this 4 years ago that they talk about sanctioning Russia, but we're the ones that are being sanctioned. Grocery bills were 40% higher. Everything is 40% higher than it was 4 or 5 years ago. That's why during the election, the question was simple. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And of course, the answer is no. We were better under Donald Trump. And like I say, he's probably one of the greatest presidents in American history, in established American history. And the reason why I say this is because experiments don't vote. If you're an experiment, if you're under controlled conditions, you don't have a right to vote. You're not going to say, oh, well, I don't want to be an experiment case no more. You don't have a vote in the Senate. You kind of see where I'm getting at? This is where the politicians, this is where the Congress and the Senate, they're all polished politicians. They've been there for decades. If you're as corrupt as you are in your store that you work for, or you're as corrupt as you are in your restaurant that you own, just imagine how corrupt they are in the government, in the Senate, in the Congress. If you're corrupt, what makes you think they're not? My point is this. We're an experiment. Self-government in the history of the world. That's not hyperbole. That's a fact. Then Joe Biden comes out to say that the people voted. The people vote and choose their own leaders, and they do it peacefully. We're in a democracy. The will of the people always prevails. You see what he's saying? It always prevails. We do this peacefully. That's why they already know that they lost by a long shot. They already knew that they were going to lose. And so now we're going to do everything peacefully. We want to make sure that you understand, Republicans, you Christians, you conservatives. We want to make sure that you understand very clearly that we do this peacefully. We're in peace. And the vote counts, okay? This is a democracy. The votes are the ones that choose the people. And we have peaceful transitions. This is what Joe Biden said in this about 6-minute video. Peaceful and orderly transition to Donald Trump. This is what Congress and the Senate and politicians do. This is what we've had in America. This is why they're getting away with what they're getting away with to this point, to this day. This is why Donald Trump is in office today. It's because people are tired of this. Joe Biden goes on to say, the struggle for the soul of America has always been an ongoing debate. You see? They even talk about the soul of America. Are you going to be following God, or are you going to be following the devil? Liars and murderers, or honesty and truth? And he goes to call this election that campaigns are nothing more than contests. This is the reason why when Kamala Harris was running for her contest, her campaign, she always made it seem like as though it was just so fun and games. She reminded me of a high school student, to be honest, like one of those mock trial debates, or, I'm going to go around and I'm going to promise free lunch for all kids, or free cookies for lunch, or whatever a school election looked like, like the vice president, the principal. And that's the way she was always looking. Like, serious topics were always laughed at. When Donald Trump was talking about the seriousness of the conditions of the border, she would have this look at like, what are you talking about? Like it's all a contest, like it's all a joke. This is the way these people, the politicians, see it. And he goes on to say, you are not to see each other as adversaries, but fellow Americans. We need to bring down the temperature. We're not enemies. We're fellow Americans. Remember the honest election. This is a democracy. Because then he goes on to say, the integrity, it is honest, it is fair, and it is transparent, and it can be trusted. The voting system of America, this is what Joe Biden, this is the president who calls us an experiment, after calling us an experiment in the world, tells us, and he wants you to, this ingrained in your mind, Christian. He wants this ingrained. The integrity, it is honest, it is fair, and it is transparent, and it can be trusted. Win or lose, we can restore the respect for all the election workers. Thank them for protecting the very integrity of the election. Remember what he said. We need a peaceful and orderly transition of power. My point is, this is what he's saying in this 6-minute speech. He's ingraining in your brain to prepare for the future. You see, Donald Trump is only in office for 4 years. That's how long an election lasts. I mean, a presidency lasts. 4 years. And so, in 4 years from now, okay, how many of us are going to be gun-ho for Mike Rounds to be president for the Republican Party? How many of us are going to be like tens of thousands of people attending Mike Rounds rallies? How many people are going to go visit Mike Rounds? Is he going to get 60, 70 million votes for Mike Rounds? Now, I know you guys keep saying, you're probably thinking, well, who's Mike Rounds? We don't even know who Mike Rounds is. Exactly. That's my point. By the way, Mike Rounds is a Republican senator for South Dakota. He's a Republican senator for South Dakota. And yet none of us know who Mike Rounds is. That's my point is J.D. Vance, the vice president of Donald Trump? Is everyone going to be going out to vote for J.D. Vance? Is he going to be getting tens of thousands, if not 100,000 plus people to go attend a J.D. Vance rally in 4 years? Is it going to be too big to rig? Is this what we have to deal with now? That it has to be too big to rig? Is our elections now need to be too big to rig? That's what I say is that you got to have more than 3/4 of the country voting for Donald Trump in order for him to even win. Because they know, and I hate to say this, if Kamala Harris would have won, it may have brought the end of America. America may have had open rebellion and chaos on the streets. It may have happened if Kamala Harris would have won, because it was just so far out there that there was no way for her to win. My point is, we know the way polished politicians are. And is everyone going to be going out by the tens of thousands to stand with J.D. Vance? No, they're not. And Joe Biden continues to say, on January 20th, we will have a peaceful, on January 20th, we will have a peaceful transfer of power here in America. Not that we will hope, not that we will see. This is what we will have. We will have a peaceful transfer of power. And then he goes on to say, $20 trillion has been put into changing the country in rural areas. It takes time, but the road ahead is clear. They already know where they're going. Joe Biden already knows where he's going. The road is clear. It takes time, but $20 trillion has already been invested to change America. And Joe Biden says that things are changing rapidly. Setbacks are unavoidable, but getting back up is unforgivable. And he says it twice. Setbacks are unavoidable, but getting back up is unforgivable. They already know what they're doing. They just couldn't beat Donald Trump. He was too big to rig. You couldn't beat him. That's how powerful Donald Trump is. And Joe Biden continues to say, a defeat does not mean we are defeated. You know who he's talking to. He's talking to Hollywood. He's talking to other world leaders. They're already on course. They already know what they're looking at. 2035 is coming around the corner, and California is not going to be selling gas-powered vehicles. Okay, that's one state where you cannot buy a gas-powered vehicle in 10 years, is California. You go to California, every car in the parking lot is going to be electric. And then they start driving their electric cars over here, and other states start following suit. Everything's going to be electric. And when everything becomes electric, all that needs to fail everything is a power outage or a flip of the switch. Complete control when everything's electric. And that's the direction we're going. And now the richest man in the world, Elon Musk, is a total Republican now after a year or two ago where he was in San Francisco, a complete liberal Democrat, and now he's a Republican. He probably saw where the country was going, where they were going to win, that Donald Trump, that There was no chance that Donald Trump was going to win. That's what early voting tells you. When the early vote shows that 10% is for Kamala and 90% is for Donald Trump, we better let Donald Trump win. So the point is that the world already has their system. They already know what they're doing. This is a setback. Donald Trump is a setback, but it's only a 4-year setback because Donald Trump is a one-of-a-type individual. Not everyone has $1 billion to run as president of the United States like Donald Trump did back in 2015 and 2016. Not everyone has that will to do it. Not has that ability, that financing to do it. I mean, he spent $500 million on attorney fees just in the last year. Who has $500 million to spend on attorney fees? Donald Trump is a very powerful and influential individual. And the point is where's the next one? When he's out of office, who's next? Mike Rounds? J.D. Vance? Does it always have to be too big to rig now? Do we have to have an orderly, the integrity, the honesty, the fair, and the transparent and trusted election? We want to ingrain those words in your brain. We want to show you a smooth transition of power. We want to show you a peaceful transition of power. So that the next time that the Democrats win, because your guy is out of here, Donald Trump, in 4 years, unless there's an amendment to the Constitution where he can run for another 4 years. But when he's gone, then what? Then it's a free-for-all. Politicians are going to be neck and neck all the way to the end. No one's going to say, no, there's no way that, Tim Walz beat Mike Rounds. Who are these two people? Nobody knows these people. You know what I mean? That's what we're facing. The American life has been uprooted over the last 10 years with Donald Trump. He's not a politician. This is why he's so vital and different to us today. And with that, I could say, you know what? The next 4 years, I could take a vacation. I could take a vacation because this can be smooth sailing. Donald Trump is somebody who does what he says and says what he does. You don't have to look at Donald Trump and look over him and see if he's going to do it. He's going to do it. And so it's going to be the best 4 years and probably the last 4 years that is going to be so great that we're going to be experiencing. It's going to be great. But then again, who knows? When everyone says peace and safety, we might be in World War III next year. We might have a World War III in 2025 for all we know, right? Because everything's supposed to be going so great. But the point is, Donald Trump will get the job done. And he has no choice. He better fix those borders. So the point is, when you look at the little speech that Joe Biden gave, he's ingraining into our brain, says multiple times, the peaceful transition of power that will happen on January 20th. It will happen because we're all going to behave. We're going to give Donald Trump everything that he asks for because this is what the people want. And we need all of you to follow suit in 4 years when the Democrats win. Then you need to follow everything that we do. You need to be peaceful because we showed you peace. Even though they're going to cheat, and this time it's too big to rig. You can't have an honest election with a bunch of liars. If you want to vote, go and vote. But don't tell me that this world could be honest, because it can't. The world the leader of this world is a father of lies. So who do you think the world is? They're a bunch of liars too. So all I'm saying is that enjoy these 4 years because now they could get whoever they want into office. And Joe Biden ends his speech with, "The American experiment endures." I want you to understand that. You're not a country, America. You're an experiment. And that comes from the president, the sitting president of the United States of America. Not only does he say that for over 200 years, America has carried out the greatest experiment in the history of the world, but he also says that the American experiment endures. We're just an experiment. You know who else is an experiment? A lab rat. 40 monkeys that escape the science laboratory. That's an experiment. We're an experiment. Deal with it. So I'm going to leave you today with John 3:16, 17. Is that Jesus Christ says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, that whosoever believes in him will never perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to judge the world, but to save the world through him." So if you want to keep living your filthy life of watching porn, getting drunk, lying, going to casinos, debauchery, loving money, doing whatever you want to do, keep doing it. Jesus didn't come to judge you. He came to save you. And we're going to begin the gospel next week with Matthew chapter 1. Until then, take care. God bless and stay blessed. We'll see you then.